Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is going to cover the new features and functionality within our latest release of the Edge, which is version 12.6. All of the items that I'll be covering today can also be found in the release notes for version 12.6, and those release notes can be found within the app download section of our administration portal. I do want to note that the majority of the items that we'll be covering today were suggestions that were received from our customers. We strongly encourage all of our customers to provide feedback to us about how we can make the Edge even better. One of the easiest ways to provide that feedback is to visit our website, estimatingedge.com, hover your mouse over the support section, and then click on product feedback. Fill out the appropriate information and go ahead and hit the submit button. Our team does review all of these requests and we do our best to get them incorporated into future releases. All right, now let's go ahead and get started with a look at version 12.6. I'm sure many of you have noticed over the past several months, Estimating Edge has undergone a brand update. So one of the first differences in version 12.6 will be a new look that now has our new branding incorporated. Here you can see we've incorporated our new logo, and we've also updated all screens with new modern colors. As we take a look here at our Pages section, one of the first things I want to point out is that we have added a bunch of new keyboard commands into version 12.6. In addition to those keyboard commands, we've also added hot tips to show what the keyboard command is for each one of these buttons. As I hover my mouse over the button, in parentheses, I'll see what the keyboard command actually is. All functionality now can be done both by clicking on the appropriate button or by clicking the keyboard command. We will go ahead and post a comprehensive listing of those keyboard commands in our knowledge base, again on our website, as well as a link to them in the release notes. One of the first things I wanted to show is actually in our group database. If I go ahead and click on the estimating button in the upper right hand corner and double click on the groups, this will take me into my groups database. In previous versions prior to 12.6, if you were to come into any of your groups within the database and perform a copy and insert on any of these conditions, the add-on items within those conditions were not being copied. So we went ahead and fixed that here in version 12.6. If I click this copy and insert icon, it's going to go ahead and create a new exterior partition for me. And if I go into that exterior partition, I can now see that the add-ons have in fact copied over from the source condition. So that's been fixed in this 12.6 version. All right, so if I go ahead and move now back into my bid, I'm going to click on my pages breadcrumb to take me into my pages for the bid. One of the first things I want to show you here within the bid itself is some new functionality that we've added for adding conditions into a page. So this particular page here does not currently contain any conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Add Condition button. Maneuver to the group that I want to add conditions from. In this case, I'm just going to pick this TPO group. Go ahead and select several conditions from within that group itself and add the selected conditions over to the right-hand column. Now I also want to go ahead and add additional conditions from another group. So I'm going to come down here to Roofing Miscellaneous and go ahead and select my roof hatch and my skylight. Now notice here on the right hand side, roof hatch and skylight have both been inserted at the bottom of the list. So that's the change that we've made. In prior versions, these conditions were actually coming in alphabetical order as opposed to the order that you're placing them into the conditions to add column. So I've now got them in the order that I want. I can go ahead and hit Add to Page. And they now are going to insert into the bid itself in the exact same order as they are in the database. Now next, I want to add in a sheet metal condition that will get tied to or have the same quantity as my wall flashing condition. So now to do this, I can go ahead and first click on the wall flashing condition. I'm indicating that I want to now insert my next condition directly below that wall flashing condition. So once I've highlighted it, I can go ahead and hit the Add Condition button. Again, maneuver to the group that I want to pull these conditions from. So I'm going to go down to my roofing sheet metal group, go ahead and select the coping cap and hit Add to Page. Notice that coping cap has now been inserted directly below the wall flashing condition. Again, in previous versions, it would have automatically placed coping cap at the bottom of my list, and then I would have had to move it up to the area where I wanted to have it saved. So the next step that I want to go through is linking these two conditions together. As I mentioned before, I wanted coping cap to be tied to wall flashing so they have the same quantity. So to do that, I can go ahead and double click on coping cap to open my condition properties. Click on the quantities button in the lower left, and then go ahead and change my quantity from measured to condition. And notice the linked condition now automatically pulls in the condition that's located directly above the condition I'm currently sitting on. Again, in previous versions, the first condition in my list was always highlighted as opposed to the one directly above. This will be a faster process for you to get those conditions linked together. So I can go ahead and hit OK and OK to that condition, and I now see that those conditions are linked together. Okay, while we're here in the conditions listing, I also want to point out some new functionality that we've added in. If I go ahead and double click on my roof drain condition, I'm opening it up now to condition properties. I can go ahead and make changes if need to. Go ahead and hit OK to close out of that condition properties. Notice that roof drain is still the highlighted condition within my list. So we're now remembering the last condition that you've had open, or that you move to items on. If I go ahead and open my items for that roof drain, and then go ahead and maneuver back to my conditions breadcrumb, once again, the roof drain condition remains the highlighted condition, so I know that's the last one that I was working with. That same thing will happen if I move to my pricing screen, labor screen, or recap screen. So if I go ahead and go out to pricing, then jump back to my conditions breadcrumb, once again I'm going to see the last condition I was sitting on is now currently highlighted, so that roof drain condition is still selected. There are a couple of other items I wanted to point out while we are discussing conditions. One additional change that we have made is to ensure that when opening a condition properties window, that all fields within each tab of the condition properties fit within the window. So no more scrolling is required. An example of this, if I go ahead and move into a separate page, I do have a partition condition, which up until version 12.6 did require scrolling up and down in order to get to the finish height and fire tape height fields. So we've made all of those fit within that window, and that's true for all condition properties now. They all fit within the given window that's open for each one of the individual tabs. It should make the process a little bit easier and faster to get through it. All right, and one last thing here when it comes to our conditions, if I go ahead and close out of here, another nice feature that we've added into version 12.6 helps for sending a group to the group database. So if I want to take an existing listing of conditions, as I have here, and send them to the database as a group, I can go ahead now and mark all of my conditions. I can click the Create Group button. And what we've added now is a drop down here next to category. So if I click this drop down, it's going to show me and allow me to select any category that currently exists in my database. So you no longer have to remember either the number or category name that you want to add this new group to. You can go ahead and simply select it from the drop down and save it as a brand new group to use in later bids. The next item we're going to cover is specific to our roofing customers that are using the tapered insulation module. In this particular page, I do have this Firestone tapered cricket only condition. Up until version 12.6, if the tapered condition was being used for crickets only, the status indicator, this box here, which is currently orange, would always remain orange even after the takeoff had been performed, making it look like the condition did not contain any quantity. This status indicator has been fixed now and changes to the appropriate status color once the takeoff has been completed. So I'll go ahead and show an example of that. If I move into my takeoff for the cricket condition, as soon as I go ahead and add that particular quantity in, so I'm going to draw this cricket in next to this rooftop unit, and I'm going to go ahead and use the top or bottom half option. So I'm going to click my 3 points. That's going to go ahead and draw the cricket information in there for me. And now, if I go ahead and close the takeoff screen and move back to my condition list, notice here that orange box has turned green, telling me that everything is okay. All right, let's go ahead and open up our takeoff page again here to cover a couple more items that we've added there. The first area that I want to point out is this drawing properties section of the takeoff. So the changes that we made in 12.6 is that now all of the tools contained within the section are now being saved to the last setting that was used. So notice that my tape increment is already turned on and set to my preferred increment setting at 6 inches. It's set that way because the last time I entered my takeoff screen, that's how I had that setting. It's now saving all of those for each one of these drawing properties in the takeoff screen. Next, I want to point out a new tool that has been added. We have had the X-ray tool available since releasing version 12. For those that have not used it, the X-ray tool allows you to see through the shapes that have been taken off so that you can read notes and detail callouts that are contained on the blueprint itself. So I'll show you here. I do have X-ray turned on currently, so you can get an idea of how this X-ray tool works. It's bleeding through the takeoff itself, allowing me to see any of the notes or any information contained on the blueprint itself behind the takeoff that I've performed. But the one thing to point out here, as you can see, is that X-ray is contained to just a small area that's surrounding the crosshairs. It's not overtaking the entire screen. So we've gone ahead and added a new feature in here, and it is contained in the drawing properties section. If I click the drop down next to X-ray, we now have what we're calling the bleed through. If I go ahead and indicate bleed through, now you can see that the entire screen, not just the area around my crosshairs, is now showing the background, in this case the blueprint, so I can read all of those notes. And again, that's a setting here. If I go ahead and turn that off, we can see what it looks like with that turned off. And again, turning it back on gives me the result, so I can now see through. And again, that's across the entire takeoff screen, not just around the crosshairs like we have for the X-ray tool. Now let's go ahead and move into our pricing and labor screen. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize my takeoff. Go ahead and click on my pricing screen. And I just wanted to show a couple of things we've changed here in the pricing screen. The main change is over here in this information box, which gives me information about a specific item that I've clicked on. So if I go ahead and select my 2-inch ISO, I see here that it's coming from my mechanically attached TPO condition from this specific page, section, scenario, and bid. So the main change that we made here is we're now wrapping this text so you can read it all. In previous versions, it was all on one continuous line, and for longer condition names or page names, the information was actually getting cut off. So we've gone ahead and wrapped that text so you can now see exactly what you're getting from each one of these particular items within both the pricing and labor screen will work the same way. An additional item to cover here in the labor screen If you happen to zero out your cost per man day or cost per hour, so I'll go ahead and give an example of zeroing this out, it does give you a notification that changing the cost per man day in this case for the labor type of roofing labor is going to update any other line item that's associated with roofing labor. So I'm going to go ahead and indicate yes. In previous versions, when I would zero that cost per man day out, the trouble indicator here was not turning red. It was remaining in green, even though I was not getting any net cost from any of these line items because the cost per man day had been zeroed out. So we went ahead and fixed that. So now you can see here that the error indicator is telling you there is a problem. And in fact, it'll tell you down here that's a zero labor rate. So once I go ahead and enter in a non-zero labor rate and confirm I want it changed for all, now those red lines have all turned back to green. If we move over to the recap screen, let's take a look now at a new feature that's been requested by many users that we've now incorporated into version 12.6. So the recap screen is broken down initially by tax class. Material, labor, subcontract, equipment, and other are our default tax classes. Within each one of these tax classes, if I expand, I'll see now the user codes that are contained within that particular tax class. So what we've added here in 12.6 now is the ability to go ahead and click on either just the tax class or just one of these user codes. So I'll go ahead and highlight fasteners and plates. Now maneuver to either the pricing or labor screen, depending on which category you're in. So I'll go ahead and select the pricing screen. And you can see here now that I'm only seeing the items that are associated with that specific user code, that fastener and plates user code. At this point, if I wanted to clear that particular filter and see all items contained within my pricing screen, I can simply click on the hyperlink up here in red. That's going to go ahead and clear that filter out, and now I'm seeing all of the items that are contained within the pricing screen. Again, this feature from the recap screen can be used for either the entire tax class itself. So if I just wanted to see all material only without my equipment, other, or subcontract, I can go ahead and select the material tax class, go to my materials, my pricing screen, and again, I'm just seeing anything contained within the material tax class. Again, if I undo that filter, now I'm going to see some of these other categories appear within the pricing screen. All right, the last area I want to show you today is within our reports. So I'll go ahead and click on my reports button. One of the things to point out here first is we have added a new report type. It's called the Consolidated Condition Summary. This report is going to combine any condition of the same type and with the same name into one line item and totals all of the included conditions and associated costs. So if I go ahead and click my Run button to preview this report, I can see here that I have one single listing of conditions. So my mechanically attached TPO condition has 12,068 square feet with a total net cost of $21,532.61. So just to show you how this works, if I go ahead and close out of the reports for just a moment, I can see in the background here one page of that mechanically attached TPO did contain 6,034 square feet. I simply made a copy of that page, so I have a carbon copy with the exact same square footage, which again is why I'm seeing in this particular report the 12,000 square foot. So again, any condition of the same type with the exact same name is going to go ahead and combine together. This is a new report for 12.6. In previous versions, with this report type, the mechanically attached TPO actually would have been listed in two separate spots. So now it's just combining those together. So the last thing to talk about here is specific to our zones. We have improved our reporting when using our zones feature. So if I go ahead and maneuver back to my scenarios breadcrumb, I do have a second scenario contained within this bid that does have zones set up. So if I go ahead and expand my page that has zones, I can see here I have zone 1 and zone 2. I now have the ability to go ahead and mark one of these specific zones. When I move to my reports, any report that I print now is actually going to be specific for that zone, not across the entire bid. So I can see here I've got my 12,027.51 for my recap report on that specific zone. Again, if I go ahead and back and look at that zone, I can see that is the gross price. And again, that's going to be across all reports. As soon as I mark a specific zone, it's going to go ahead and allow me to print reports based on the information contained within that zone only. All right, so that wraps up the webinar for today. Thanks a lot for watching, and I certainly hope you'll be moving to version 12.6 soon and start using the new features and functionality that I've shown you today.